It's Red Sox Now on a Wednesday, all presented by FanArch with me, Mike Antonellis, on social at the Radio Mike. It's X and everywhere. You can find me at the Radio Mike. I'm one of the broadcasters for the Woo Sox. Yeah, cool job. But you know what's cooler about that is my colleagues have been covering the Red Sox development camp at Fenway Park, and that's a program the Red Sox implemented years ago, where they bring in top prospects for the week and they work them out. They do a lot of media sessions and then they do a lot of community appearances. It's really a cool thing. They'll visit a lot of the hospitals and do things for a lot of the cancer wings. And in the past, they have not only done that in Boston, they've gone up to Maine to the Maine Children's Cancer Program, which I was a part of and worked with when I was a Sea Dogs broadcaster. I did a lot of work with that. And so cool stuff, cool for those guys. And this is kind of, you know, once the development camp is over, and then the next week we're in the January 20s. Those guys are going to trickle down to Fort Myers, and we open up pitchers and catchers, and we'll be seeing even more baseball stuff soon. Plus, we have the World Baseball Classic. All right, so I want to put a bow on this. We found out, and Matt Vescursion and Harold Reynolds nailed it. And the national view of these things are, I like watching and enjoy a little bit more because they don't have a hat in the rink. So they don't really, they're not Red Sox fans. They don't care. Matt Vescursion is a terrific broadcaster. I like Harold Reynolds, and they just said something didn't feel right. They did not think it was over the $10 million, which I told you on the show I didn't think it was either. Bregman accepted it, and I don't agree with the Red Sox stance, Breslow, on not allowing him the no trade. I'm Team Bregman. I know I would have gotten silly here because I believe this is what my philosophy of building. It's very similar, when I read Feeding the Monster, which has Theo in, and Theo's dream, he said, was I would love a homegrown nine, but I know I'll never be allowed to do that here. And it's a big reason he left the first time because he battled with ownership for spending recklessly. And I think the Red Sox have in the past. I've not always trusted them on some of those big deals because they made splashes, but they weren't great baseball decisions. Theo was always to the point, listen, we can sign players, but they have to be smarter. And that ultimately is why he left. And when he went to the Cubs, he did things differently. He did make splashes, but building a core. That's what I want. And I've talked to Fred Lynn about this at Hadlock Field years ago. He said, what do you think the 75 team was? What do you think we did in the 70s? Because I was going on and on about player development. He goes, player development's been around forever. It's just cooler now for some reason. I think the Moneyball thing really brought it back. But when I look back at that 18 core, and even I remember Dombrowski talking about this, JBJ, Mookie, Benintendi, Devers, Bogarts, Vasquez, you had a lot of core that was your own, and then the supplement. And it doesn't have to be the nutty up here. Look at how they filled in that core with a Victorino, a Napoli, a Gomes, a Josh Reddick, Bellhorn, Miller, Kevin Millar, not the sexiest names, even some of the pitching. And I felt Bregman was, to me, was not, and a lot of you were right, like some of the numbers are not knocking you off, knocking your doors off, but in terms of everything else, priority of position, which I put there's not many third basemen in the game that are good. Everything he brought, and Bregman's making a good living on that, right? I mean, if you want to put two and two together here, the Cubs were all over Tucker, all over that. He's gone after 1 year, and they bring in Bregman. Put two and two together there. Who is probably a better overall baseball player? Kyle Tucker is probably, some of you could say he's even, way better. But why, just think about why they're not bringing him in and why he's not getting maybe the deal he wants. So for me, it's situational. I'm not a black and white, spend. I am when it makes the most sense to me. Because I was not for the Cole Crawford or the Adrian Gonzalez or even the Daisuke. I was not for those. Those were splash moves. Those were business moves to show. and it didn't work. And I knew they wouldn't work. Seriously, I really wish I was doing this show back then because I was a Scrooge with that stuff. I hated the Cole Crawford because I knew, well, I don't want to. I won't go too overboard, but I had a heads up pretty early in spring training that this was a disaster waiting to happen from coaches that were working with them that said, "Oh boy, that's all I'm going to reveal." And I kind of knew this was going to be a disaster. Um, so I'm not for the moves that you do just for business. I want them to be baseball. I'm not saying that's right either. Right? Like, so what is a non baseball move? It's probably like if you signed someone at a position that you absolutely didn't need. Like maybe Tucker could be more of a business move and not the best baseball move because then you would be forced to trade the outfielders, like Duran or Abreu, and you might think you have leverage, but you might not because the teams know you have to get rid of them. So for me, it's building a foundation, which a lot of teams like even the big markets are like the bigger spenders, the Yankees. And when it makes sense to overspend because free agency is nuts, I am all for it. So I was for in this case getting crazy and silly about Bregman. I was fine with. I would have been fine with 205 years. Absolutely would have been fine with that because of the position, because of everything else, and because it helps the development of players that are young. But again, like I said, the crossover, if you continue to do that, you will continue to flatline. If you keep bringing in a different voice over and over every 2, 3 years, you will be a laughing stock of an organization, and it's not something I'm for. So let's see what happens as we go forward. Let's see how they get out of this. Bo in Philly went great, of course. You know, I read all of this stuff about Bichette, and I agree with all of the stuff. You know, the Mattingly and yes, Dave Dombrowski is a very charming guy. I like Dave. I met Dave many times. He came to Hadlock a lot. I've interviewed him a bunch of times. But it's still going to be about money. Like it doesn't matter. I don't agree with all of this. I've seen this with the Red Sox that the Red Sox used to be a destination that players wanted to come to just because of the mystique of it. I don't that's not true. That's a little fabrication. It's still about what's best for them. The only guy that really did that was A-Rod. A-Rod took a huge pay cut to play here because he admitted he wanted to be at Fenway and he wanted to play with Manny and Ortiz. But the Yankees aren't even getting like the reason that a lot of guys are running to the Dodgers or the Phillies is because of the money. The mystique stuff to a point. Like that's getting overdone. The Red Sox are still a destination. Players still love playing there. I don't care what anyone says. Steve Matz told a bunch of people how amazing his experience was with there. He had no reason to say that. He told Sonny Gray. But at the end of the day, like, players don't get so wrapped up in all this stuff either. They're professionals. Of course, you would play with the Red Sox if it's the right situation. You don't think Contreras, Crochet, Sonny, they all want to be there. Chapman loves being there. That was where he wanted to be. But I don't agree that it's not a destination anymore. That is a fabrication. Maybe New York's, it's still I think it cannot be a destination for certain people who are from a certain part of the country. There are some West Coast players and Midwest that are not comfortable here in the East Coast, and that's their prerogative. But I don't think like I guess my point is this. What happened to Bregman not getting a no trade, it might hurt a few other guys, but that's not, I don't know how a lot of guys feel. Other guys might have said, geez, at 31, 32, I'd take 165 for 5 years. I don't care about the trade. I don't have a family. So I wouldn't put, this as to nothing works. And if you agree with that, then the correlation to that would be it wouldn't matter what they gave somebody, right? Like if they gave Bichette 10 years and 300 million, which I don't think they will. If you feel like players don't want to be here, he'd turn that down. So a lot of that other noise, I know how players are. They don't care about a lot of the things that you think they care about. Because the bottom line is this: if you're a free agent and you have a big market team that wants you, you're going to try to make that work. And here's another thing that kind of clouds, well, not clouds, but that hurts free agents when they play with teams like Houston. Houston is notorious for not spending on their guys. They keep a certain, and then we know what they did. They traded Tucker. They get rid of guys. So Alex Bregman, in his first 3 years with the Astros, made about $1.5 million. He was the runner-up for MVP in 19, making $640,000. The Astros increased his salary, I'll give them credit, to $13 million the next 3 years. That's it. You would think after you are runner-up of MVP after 19 at third base for a 25-year-old, I would think the Sox, Yankees, Dodgers, or if that was one of their guys, and you just saw this with Anthony, they're giving that guy an extension. The Astros didn't really do that. They did extend him a little bit, but 13 million, 13 million, 13 million, like, yes, I know it's a lot of money. And then he got 24. He was severely, and he got 30, and then 30. But he's not making that kind of money with the Yankees. If he came up with the Yankees, came up with the Red Sox, came up with the Dodgers, Phillies, they probably give him a bigger deal. So what happens when those teams don't do that? And I don't blame them on this. They want all that money back. They want back pay. That's the big issue with free agency when guys get to this point after they're not controlled. So it usually works out where you have 6 to 7 years control, and then the guy's the free agent at 29 and 30. And if they're from a certain organization that refuse to give them the money they think they're worth, they want it all back. And that's what Bregman and Boras are doing. And I don't blame them. That's what all of these guys are doing. The guys that don't get and that's where Atlanta, well, the Rays did it first with Longoria, but the Braves way, where they gave all those guys money up front so that it didn't come to this. So all the teams, and this is why it's more of an issue on the bottom. The more teams that don't spend and don't give extensions early on, and if the league minimum doesn't go up, you're going to have these kind of issues in free agency. And what is happening now with that is everybody, not just the Red Sox, the Dodgers have signed one guy. And the reason the Dodgers have only signed one guy is they don't really need to do much more. But now teams just aren't playing that anymore. That's why everything is dragging out, because they're not doing that. They know, I mean, sometimes baseball is not very smart. And then like the light bulb's like, why are we doing this? Like, why are we paying guys 29 and 30 for back pay? Well, it's the only way you get them, which I'm not opposed to either. I'm just telling you, this is what happens. This is the motivation of a lot of these free agents. You know, I mean, Bregman made $640,000 being runner-up to MVP. Like that should not happen if you think about it. And then he gets 13 million next year, which is a good raise. But the Dodgers got him. I mean, the Astros. So then got him at. That's what they do. That's the way they run, and that causes all of this weird stuff that happens in free agency. But free agency is a brutal thing. It's brutal. Now, do I want Bichette? Not for 10 years. And all of you that it's interesting how many. I would say that more than 60%. I would say even 65 to 70% of the comments I got on Red Sox Now was not for Bregman. Now we're getting pretty much 90% of the comments saying that they wanted Bregman, which I get. I understand that. I understand why. But a lot of you that want Bichette, and you're saying, well, just because he's younger, I don't care about that. He's been hurt more than Bregman. There's no denying that. And you could say, well, Bregman's injuries are worse. Okay. But Bregman's been on the injured list twice his career. And the Cubs would not. They look at all the medicals. There's a lot that goes before you do this. They were working on this along. And by the way, I didn't know that Bregman had an offer from the Cubs last year. That just came out. So Chicago was a destination of his even before. But I am concerned about the PCL strain for Bichette because it was serious. And the fact that the Jays don't want him anymore. That should, and I know they're going to better defense, but they don't even feel he can play second base. Right? If they don't. If the bat is elite, you don't, and maybe they still do sign him, but you don't say no to a bat like that. If you think he can play second base, he is re-signed. So they have questions about him. If the Red Sox ever let go of Bichette for Ernie Clement and Andres Gimenez, you guys would go bonkers. And they're doing it for defense, which I am for, because if they kept Bichette for business instead of what was best for baseball, that would be irrational. And maybe fans would like him more. I don't know what Blue Jay fans think, but that is an elite bat. So I'm not saying that I'm right on any of this, but it concerns me that he already can't play defense anymore at 27. So when you bring the age thing up to me, Alex Bregman has not lost a step defensively. He's not. He is an elite third baseman. Bichette at 27, 4 to 5 years younger than him, can't play shortstop anymore. That should alarm you. Oh, second base. Oh, it's easy. It is? Last time I checked, it's not. It's the big leagues. This isn't high school. There's no position on the field that's easy. There are positions that are more priority. But I have concerns about that. A 10-year deal for a player that is already washed up defensively? That is irrational to me. So I am not for that one bit at that. I don't want that. And if they do that, if they end up giving him the money or whatever, if they do whatever, then they wanted Bichette the whole time. Like, that's how I'm going to look at it. So we'll see. I would do it in a shorter, I don't think he can play third. I would love that if he could play third. But I have a lot of concerns about a 10 in that situation, 8 to 10 years just for the bat. No thanks. No thanks. Because if the bat doesn't work, then he's living in your roster, and I don't know. But if it happens, I won't be again. I'll support it. I would rather see, and I saw that Lou said the same thing I did, Ketel Marte. I feel like it will hurt you in a trade, but you could control him. He can play second. He's a switch hitter. He's an elite player. That's where I would go. Or with pitching. By the way, the Red Sox did meet with Framber Valdez at the winter meetings. I did not know that. Somebody I forget who had that yesterday. So, yeah, I'm for that. Red Sox signed Patrick Halligan to a minor league deal. This is just a lot of this is what happens, like to build the depth at AAA. 6'6" righty, 230. This is kind of how they profile, and you have to give them credit in this department. The pitching, and this is where I do like where they're heading as an organization. If they were the other way, I would be killing them even more. I like that they're going as a more pitching organization because you have to. You're not winning anything without it. And like Tolley and Early, and they have arms after arms after arms, and they continue to just sign guys that fit their profile. 6'6" righty was in Double-A Astros. It was pretty good it has a real good splitter. Minor league deal. So we'll see, how that progresses. Steve Ott, 1369. If we pivot for run prevention by targeting a number 2 starter, we've done nothing to improve infield defense at second, third, which that strategy would necessitate. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the other thing, too. I do like how they've become more, put more emphasis on pitching, which you should. The thing is that these are things they should have done. And listen, to their defense, they won 4 World Series without having terrific homegrown arms, which is pretty remarkable. They were so good with position players, and they were so good at finding players like, Dempster, Jake Peavy. Like, they filled in the holes with guys outside the and they, for years they had Pedro and they with Schilling, but like Tim Wakefield was a minor league signing. Like they were good at finding just enough. But in this day and age, Bayo control, Early, Tolley, like elite arms, because the price of these pitchers now are insane. And we're going to see it, like, right? You know what I mean? Because now with it it's thinning out some more, they're getting so much more money. The school was probably going to get $50 million. But you have to do a service to your pitchers. You know what I mean? So, like, when Crochet's on the mound, you cannot have Eugenio Suarez playing third base. You can't, because you'd have one error, 2 errors, and the game's over. You have to, Mike DeGeorge 8113, probably no trade for another infielder. That's my guess. They need a bat. We'll end up with another pitcher. Pitchers slot in more easily. Well, I think maybe I think you're saying based on free agency, yes, but not in terms of getting them. Joe Ryan is going to be way more than Marte. Way more. Not even close. It won't even be in the same stratosphere. Sandrubby, at Sandrubby, calling it now. The Sox third baseman will be Luis Renfigo. I can never say his name. 28 years old, switch hitter. Pretty solid, but not exceptional. Fan favorite with the Angels. Don't think we have a chance with the Shet. Suarez might hit 40. And strikeout defense would be Devers' worst. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Renhifo, right? I think you spelled, yeah, Renhifo. Yeah. It's a G. That's what was from RENG, Sandrubby, not F. Renhifo. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree. But here's what sometimes I feel like people are talking in circles. But you are all for the Alonso, which he profiles kind of the same player as Suarez. Too many strikeouts, bad defense. So if you wanted Alonso, why would you want Suarez? I'd actually rather have Alonso, because you just have to suck it up at first base. Third, you don't want to just do that. All right, that's going to do it. Jam-packed Wednesday show. We'll be back at it Thursday for Red Sox Now. Get your comments in. Send me an email. Antonellis.michael@gmail.com. And make sure to follow me on social @TheRadioMike. So enjoy your day, and as always, go Sox.